know.
How do we know he's recording? تعرفي Mandy if the light is on?
He's basically trying to mansplain how a camera works. You want me to start in this?
Yeah.
This is the tripwire conversation. Welcome back to Unholy Talks. Today we're not going to talk the males in this room. Mandy is with us here, and she has volunteered to explain to us what is mansplaining, the dynamics of mansplaining.
It's basically when a man talks over the top of women, usually in quite a patronising manner, and on a topic that she knows more than they do.
Mansplaining is like just women are just, angry generally, like men's are talking.
You realize we're mansplaining?
Oh, okay, sorry, Mandy.
About 10 years ago, a woman wrote a blog called Men Explain Things to Me, and she's a writer, Roberta Solznet, and she wrote about all the examples, and I can give you lots of my own personal examples in a minute, of when men have come up to her at parties and said, "Oh, what do you do?" And she'll say, "I'm an author," and then you try and explain to her what her last book was just about. So she wrote this blog post saying, "Men Explain Things to Me," and it went viral, as the saying goes. And since then, there's been more and more attempts to show this. In the field that I'm in, academia, for example, there's a couple of Facebook sites or websites which catalogue this, so women put this up quite a lot. There's one that's great that's called "Congratulations, you have an all-male panel," which is a Facebook site. It's very common in academia to go to conferences and it to be all men, right down to the chairs. And this is a particularly funny one because this one it's a panel on women in maths, and it's all male speakers, right? So this kind of exemplifies what I'm talking about in terms of mansplaining.
It's been proven in academia that women choose.
So what happens? So say for example you're at a conference and there's a woman chair. She will choose more women to speak from the audience than if a man chairs it. It's been proven. There's been studies done.
Because the man will choose more men.
Yeah.
So a woman will choose more women, man will choose more.
No,
men.
it's not. No, it's not. No, let's just calm down. So the study showed that a woman chair would choose 50% women and 50% men, and a male chair would it was roughly 3/4% men and 25% women.
That's also mansplaining?
No, I'm just trying to say that it's not just about words. This is reflecting a dynamic that exists within society in terms of inequality.
But the problem with the concept of mansplaining for men is it limits the ability to speak or to freely speak, like me a bit now. Like you have to measure every word you are saying because you don't want to be tricking yourself or tripping yourself into being a mansplaining. So in a way, it's affect the natural dynamics of a conversation between man and woman, because men has to always be kind of guarding themselves that they are not crossing the line.
The thing that you always have to be aware of is power dynamics in any society. So while I understand what you're saying in terms of, you feel as a man that the concept of mansplaining stops you from talking more openly. So I've brought a little handy chart.
Can I interject there just for a second? So let's say he does come up to me and explains to me how I should do music and everything. Can a man mansplain to another man?
No, I don't think so, because this is about patronising behaviour that reinforces gender stereotypes and power dynamics in society.
But I've also been in situations, let's say, where a person who is coincidentally a female is explaining to me music or something, or some Armenian history. And I think she's definitely wrong about what she's saying. But is that, what would you consider that?
I would just say she was a bit arrogant, really, and I think women can be equally as arrogant as men.
If a man walks up to you at the airport or whatever and asks you what you do, and then you tell him what you do, and then he just asks dumb questions and is simply an arrogant, stupid man.
There's plenty.
Why do we have to over-intellectualize that in power structures when the guy probably is not even his dumb
he's not conscious
character is not sourced in that? I don't know. Do I make sense, or did I just fall all over the tripwire one after the
You
other?
do make sense, but the point is, and I'll put it another way. It's not over intellectualizing the situation. If you look at women across different sectors of society, all of them talk about this issue, that it's a problem, that men assume that they don't know what their job is. Men assume that they know more than women do, and this covers lots of experiences. One of the best and well-known diagrams of mansplaining was created by a design consultant. She's not an academic. A woman called Kim Baldwin. She did this chart that you can put in later,
Yes.
which is really explains it. I mean, this is a design consultant who did this chart because men like you asked, when will I know if I am mansplaining or not? And it's very simple. She starts off, did she ask you to explain it? Yes. Not mansplaining. Did she ask you to explain it? No. Do you have more relevant experience? Yes, by a fair amount. And she goes through different scenarios. And this is the situation, that if a man starts explaining to a woman something that she already is clearly doing, then there's an issue there. I understand what you're saying in terms of women sometimes being as equally ridiculous. It's not about whether someone is stupid or not. It's about whether someone regards their experience and their knowledge to be greater than the person whose job that they're speaking to about. The concept of mansplaining itself is not just an empty vacuous one. It's like if you use the concept of racism, right? It's not just, if somebody expresses a racist comment, there's a history there's a structure there, okay?
I mean, I just want to look at the other side of this, because communication, part of it is, of course, verbal, but the other half is the body language.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many people can be racist without saying racist things, or they can be aggressive without saying aggressive things, because their body language, their behavior, their attitude can reflect that feeling. Can we talk about attitudes that can be a mansplaining without actually verbally being mansplaining? Does that thing exist?
When men sit with their legs akimbo,
I wonder if that's also mansplaining.
It's not mansplaining, but it's just a product of men's position in society, that they think that they are entitled to more space than women. And that is a thing. You hear about it quite a lot in buses or tubes where women, and in Japan, they have women-only metro cabins because men, take up their space. They sometimes use that to their own advantage to touch women inappropriately.
You've been a successful woman leading a prestigious institute for a few years in Jerusalem. Now the question is, can you give us a life examples of when you felt like this is mansplaining par excellence?
Wow. Okay. I can think of a couple off the top of my head that are very searing.
No mentioning of names. We don't.
No.
But
So
everybody knows.
Anything she wants.
No, actually, not most of them are not from here. So one example.
Mansplaining in Palestine is not an issue.
Oh no, there is mansplaining for sure, but there's mansplaining everywhere. And actually, some of the worst mansplaining I've experienced is being at international conferences. So a couple of years ago, I was asked to speak at a workshop in Montreal about my work on Israel and Palestine, and it was a closed workshop. Everybody was, high-ranking researchers, and there was one male professor, a Canadian, who kept interrupting me. He didn't do this to anybody else. Kept interrupting me to tell me, I know nothing about this topic, but it seems to me. And this is usually a telltale sign of mansplaining. This
is a trope,
right?
Mansplaining trope.
I know nothing about this, but it seems to me. And then he went on to say some of the most ridiculous things about the situation here.
About your field.
About
Basically.
Israel-Palestine, yeah.
But this sort of leads me to the scenario that I wanted to present, in the sense that if a woman comes up to me and talks to me about, let's say, Israel-Palestine, or a region that I know well, and she knows nothing about. Let's say she's Canadian, okay?
Speak about Armenia.
She talks about Armenia or Israel, Palestine, whatever, the conflict here. I don't know, a region that she doesn't know anything about. And especially here, you meet a lot of people here that have an opinion, right? But they have no idea what's going on here. And she talks. If I explain to her that she's completely wrong, and I explain to her the facts, but I'm a male in this case, right? I'm explaining to a female that has no idea what she's talking about the facts of the topic. Would I be considered as a mansplainer?
No,
in that
that's
according to the
ludicrous.
graph.
That's ludicrous. Why has a discussion about mansplaining then immediately becomes an issue about poor men? We're not allowed to speak. When can we speak? I understand you want to be able to speak equally. We want to be able to speak equally, but the power dynamics don't allow us to. And because men are socialised also to feel that their voice needs to be heard all the time and that what you say is valid, it means that often in circumstances when women are there, you tend to drown them out. That's what men do, unfortunately.
Now, I'm in the high street, so to speak, daily, and
What street?
In the high street, in the main street,
Salahuddin.
most of the day, and I face this dilemma all the time, and I need help. A woman trying to park her car, and she is struggling.
This is where I won't talk.
If I come and say, "Would you need help?" and offer my help in parking the car, I will do the same for men as well.
No, you wouldn't.
But when I do it for women, can I ask the question, or is there also a form of mansplaining or capitalizing on gender imbalance?
Well, I mean, driving's a specific issue, and I think Apple just hit the nail on the head. Would you do this for a man as well, is the question.
You wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I think it's fine. I'll give you an example that a female friend gave to me when I actually talked recently about mansplaining. Is that she's a brilliant parallel parker. She learned in San Francisco, and when she moved to Ramallah, she was parking her car every single day outside her workplace, and the security guard was coming out every single day and telling her how to park. And then after he'd done it for 6 days. You'd have thought that after the first day or two he'd realise that she was able to do it.
Okay,
it took 6 or 7 days to do it, and then he said, "Wow, you're a better driver than a man." It's like, wow, so that's like praise indeed, right? If women are like equal or even better than men. I don't think what you're doing is a problem, but it's good that you're self-aware of it. If a woman turns to you and says, "Well, no, I don't need your help," that's fine. If you were to stand there and then go like this and and go, then that would be problematic.
Yeah.
But there's ways of doing it.
The question is, towards the end of this, like the ABC, the first 3 things that the man should do before opening his mouth in a conversation. Could you just tell us 1, 2, 3, check?
Clean breath.
Yeah, well, maybe that helps. But checklist.
If you're speaking to a woman, don't assume that you know more than her. Don't go and explain to something when she's clearly doing it, being ridiculed.
So ask if she needs the help.
Ask if she needs the help. If she said yes,
Or if she needs
then
explaining.
that's not. Yeah. Do you need this explained? No, I don't. Well, then class, you go. If she says yes, please, then go ahead. There's no big issue around that situation, I don't think. I think men are being oversensitive to the fact that women are now standing up and saying we have the right to equal space in terms of speech
But you need
and
to
right to speak.
You need to feel sorry for the men, because we've been living on a stack of privilege over a long time, and now they've been taken away from us. So we feel like it's like the world is changing.
We've seen in the last 10 years a reversal of all the gains that were made in the 60s and 70s in terms of women's rights. Not just Trump. I mean, we see right-wing governments across the world. Reversal of women's right to choose, reductions in health services, which actually affects women worse. And actually a reversal of some of the gains made of women being elevated into positions of power across business and education and social services. So we are actually seeing a reversal and an attack that's coming through leaders like Trump, Boris Johnson in the UK. And that's the problem, because this will force women back into a position where they are even more marginalised. I think that men can actually be in solidarity with women on this, and so I would appeal to men that if you're in a situation where a woman is speaking, it can be your sister, or it could be a social setting, or it could be your workplace, and you see a man who is talking over the top of a woman or speaking to her as if she doesn't know what she's talking about, then you should speak up. You should say, I don't think that you should be talking at the top. You should let this woman speak. And you should also maybe have a word if your friend is someone who does this a lot. Just take them aside and say, I don't think that the way you speak to X is correct, and point out why you think that is. We would like men to be allies here. It's not just our struggle, it should be a struggle for everybody. So we need you to be gender traitors. We need you to stand up when men are being idiots.
I think there's no better way of closing this than this heartfelt advice. Thank you, Mandy, very much for the advice and for being with us today and for making the time for this to happen in your last day in Jerusalem. We wish you the best to come up. We wish in your life, in your career, you are...
you go to Manchester, right?
Manchester, UK, yeah.
You'll be missed here in Jerusalem, that's for sure. Thanks for our female audience. Please share this with other females so you can get the words out about mansplaining.
No,
and then
share it with men.
Oh yeah, of course.
Women already know about it.
So you see,
spend 20 minutes with him, hasn't learned anything. There you go. That's your epitome of man right there.